Okay, so this is the international release I've dressed specially for the occasion. It's called RealHeartCoherence.com, and Patrick and I together have developed the next. It used to be called the Heart Tuner. It was earlier called Heart Link, in which we demonstrated with thousands of people around the world that you could measure empathy and entrainment and tantra by measuring the moments when the hearts link between people. So you measure the musical key signature of two hearts, literally the musical note of each heart's fundamental, and then when they link up, you have that sharing, that tantric moment, that empathy, the possibility of entrainment, plasma between bodies. Measure amount of coherence, and which is the kind of the lie detector kinesiology measure. And then you measure that musical fundamental, and as that goes from 0.618 to 1, you can measure the movement from stuck in the head at 1.0 to in your heart at 0.618. It's amazing. It's worked around the world. It used to cost $3,000. Now it costs $300. We're announcing it today, now, with this new incredible amplifier that Patrick has built that enables us to do full 2-channel EKG of 2 persons. It's amazing. Patrick put an incredible amount of work, and just now, as of today, it's ready.
This is just a plan display.
Speak loudly, yeah.
So you will get two peaks. When people are the more the people will be coherent, the biggest will be the peak. And when there are 2 channels, two person, what we are looking for is that when there is an empathy, the 2 peaks will be close to each other. And so that's what we will measure now with people who are interested. Well, of course we cannot do with everybody, but we can make it.
Show them the little chart that showed the other next slide. Didn't it show the 0.6?
The one with the previous.
Yes, there.
This was the older one.
This is how we originally developed this. We went from 0.6 to 1.0, and this was stuck in your head, and this was in your heart, and this was peaceful balance. It's just the musical fundamental of your heart going from 1 cycle per 60 cycles per second to 60 seconds per minute. Yeah, that's right. And this is 1.618 times that. It's 90. That's right, about 90 seconds. So your heart rate changes. And we discovered around the world that change in musical fundamental in the heart was profoundly indicative of whether you were stuck in your head or feeling empathy for other people. We even called this the bank manager position. And this was the touchy-feely, like kindergarten teachers are always over here. So you learn something as well as learn one another. So it's very fun. Please.
And the device comes with two types of sensors. So you can put wrist on, which is the most easiest way. Otherwise, you have to put stickers on your body, like a normal EKG. But you will receive both. You see there are stickers also, and cable that can be connected. You can use the stickers and put it directly on your skin. And you can even mix one person with stickers, the other one with the wrist. But for demonstration, it's easier to use the wrist. So there are 3 wrists. One which is going to the side of the heart.
It's a simple wrist strap to measure the EKG accurately.
Well, you need a little bit gel, conductive gel to it's better. If it's very hot and your skin is very wet, it can work also. It's better if you use.
So for full EKG, you see, you can't use the inexpensive heart rate variability transducers, those little finger clips, which work beautiful for breath, yoga control, and sleep analysis overnight. But to actually measure real full heart coherence, you can't start with just a pulse counter. You need the full electrocardiogram of 2 people. And normally you think that would be expensive, but here for a couple $100, thanks to Patrick's developing the new amplifier. So we measure the full, complete electrocardiogram EKG of 2 people. And then by harmonic analysis of that, which is something I pioneered almost 40 years ago when I invented the term heart coherence, which is credited in the literature from that work. So on one arm, you need just one lead because it's called full differential preamplification, which means you need a signal, a ground, and a reference ground. That's why you need 3 wires, effectively. But it's quite simple. You see it took him just a moment to put it on. And then the amplifier will tell him if the signal input is a clean data. If it's a noisy, you'll actually see it. And so you can see the raw data. I mean, it's very rigorous and precise, as well as being the ultimate kid's toy, because as soon as kids find out, you can find out who loves whom. It's like the high school favorite. Well, so he's got it all hooked up, and now he's going to switch to your inputs. He's switching from the computer screen to the iPad screen, switching inputs. So this is realheartcoherence.com. There's the opening screen.
Okay, so you have in this app you can also play sound, binaural sound, generate different kind of frequency cascade, and also get HRV while listening sound. But this is not the thing that we are explaining now. So you select emotional balance.
This is actually the Flame in Sound app.
It doesn't accept to do it because I first have to connect the sensor, so I scan.
So you scan for the
I find
Bluetooth.
it, and now I should get...
Look at that, Patrick, congratulations. Look at this. This is 2 electrocardiograms, and those are clean. A hospital would be proud of that. How Patrick programmed this is the size of the primary peak, blue being Sandy, is indicated by the size of the blue ball.
Yeah, also.
And the position of the primary peak, which we have real data here. So Vanessa in blue, right? Red, and Sandy in blue. Okay. Well,
That's
interesting.
quite close.
You see where Sandy is? They're both very close to 0.61. So clearly, we do not have a bank manager here. We haven't found the bank manager. Yeah. No, what we found is the kindergarten teacher.
When they are really close, the heart will jump, but it does feel a little bit...
So this is the musical fundamental of their hearts, and the size of the valentine is the amount of coherence, and the right-left position of the valentine, is that right?
No, when you have the graph, it's on the graph it's on the scale, but when the 2 hearts are displayed, it's only the relationship between the distance between the 2 hearts on the scale.
But what we did learn is both of these ladies were within about 0.58 to 0.63, very close to 0.61 golden ratio, indicating rather clearly that the dominant emotive state of these ladies is more the empathic. Literally, electrically, what I believe it means is that at the golden ratio position there, it means your heart is more electrically susceptible to embeddability. Literally, electrically permission to touch. That's what, yeah. And so electrical permission to touch is indicated by, yeah, put the red balls and the screen on. Here's a bit better. Yes. But we do have a very beautiful dominant peak here. It's quite impressive that we have 2 very specific dominant peaks. The amplitude of this peak is the amount of internal phase coherence in those hearts. Literally, this goes up and down, gets bigger and smaller when your heart does the lie detector thing. She's listening to me, and she went away from empathy toward I'm thinking about it. She moved toward I'm thinking about it in response to me, you see. So I would precipitate the lady being in their head. Yeah. Okay. So I have some lessons to learn. But whereas the blue here, Vanessa? Sandy in blue, she's solid. Look at that. Now actually, that's a relatively higher heart rate, isn't it? She's close to 100 beats per minute, isn't she?
Can I explain that?
Yes.
I'm on antibiotics because I spent Saturday morning in the hospital.
Oh, I
and
see.
I'm just taking antibiotics and I can feel my body racing.
That's right.
Because,
Yeah. So we have Yeah, and your heart rate even went faster when you said that. We were
When she talks about it.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to take them, you know.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'd be really resistant to taking them, so I've had to work.
Now, Sandy had a beautiful experiment she wanted us to do, which is people's response to her heart artwork. But I think, Sandy, what we should do is we should connect somebody else where you are now,
Yeah.
and because your heart rate is a little bit biased,
Yeah.
and then you can help us with the experiment in a minute. Huh?
Okay.
But your heart is doing so good.
Wouldn't it be better to choose a couple?
Well, yes, we're going to do that next.
Oh,
Or do we have a couple that wants to try it here? Oh, we're going to do Lydia and yeah? Do we have a couple that would like to? Would you guys like to? William? Come on, yes. It's very fun. It's a trip. Yes, these are two sweethearts, really. I can personally attest. William and Margaret. Yeah. So that's the idea, is to see. And the idea was to see which couples benefit most from measuring when they're in training their hearts, because in the science of Tantra, for example, when your hearts are embedded, they phase lock, and the charge can pass between bodies. So it's not just a measure of empathy, but also the plasma entrainment that's enabled when you have real Tantra. That's the idea. That's why. Actually, it was William Golden who founded the Yoga Journal in Southern California, who pioneered the use of this for measuring Tantra, actually, the original heart tuner. And so we have a long history of being used for actual development of not just commercial empathy training. And commercially, empathy training has great economic value. Leading bank in Australia, I mentioned, the ANZ Bank, bought the system for that purpose. So people realize that empathy is a skill that it can be chosen, actually. You can choose to feel empathy. And the psychology, of course, is very profound in that you try to feel their feelings as if you were them. And as you embed yourself in that psychology, to feel what's outside you as if it's what's inside you, that's called turning inside out. And you saw in EKG that those donuts dimple. Yes?
I've read some studies that show that, for example, sports teams, when there's coherence between them, they perform much better.
When
there's coherence
between who?
between in sports teams.
Oh yes, no, tremendous value. And you know they use heart rate variability. That's very common in sports training, HRV and groups. And we can get some measurement of a training with HRV, but this is even more powerful for teamwork. Absolutely.
Could this be used to train sports teams to become more coherent?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yes. And you know, there's precedent for that in heart rate variability, but this is a whole other level, because instead of just measuring the pulse, the simple pulse sequence, now we measure the full electrocardiogram. And it looks like we have two signals here. Why don't you turn the data display on? Okay, there we go. So, let me guess, blue is William. Is William in blue? And Marguerite, or no? And men are indeed from Mars, and women are the area guys.
that's why we need to.
No, but so William is doing our job for us, demonstrating where we men have to live out in the stuck in your head position a little bit. Although, actually, William, your heart rate is relatively low. Is that correct? Which at 1.1?
55 is.
Yeah, that's 55. Now, a lot of times we find a relatively low heart rate in someone who does lots of sports.
Yeah.
Whereas Marguerite, right? See, when we originally worked on this, we found there were three main positions. One was 0.61, we called the, touchy fever in your heart, and the other 1.0 we called being in your head. And then the geometric median, which would be 0.79 hertz, which we call peaceful balance. And generally, after people stabilize, they will do so in one of those three geometric positions. And Marguerite is right here in the center, which is great for peaceful balance. Now, the other thing to note is the ability to move that at will is a tremendous emotional skill. So, for example, William, if you wanted to link with her heart, just maybe even can you relax and hold one hand for a second? And I was going to take just from that, and see if you can relax and be still. Some of that is in a way, just a moment. do the display thing. Yeah, those peaks. So William got over there for a moment, and actually, the problem is William is listening to me instead of her. That's really
Would it change if they just go into a short heart connection without any talking?
okay.
Close your eyes and think about the first time you fell in love.
Oh, okay. Well, a little of both. You're right. You're right. A little of both. Yeah. At this moment, we don't make any judgment or anything, but we say you guys did not achieve moving your hearts together. Actually, that you're both very stable, both emotionally very stable. But during this display, William, it's true that you displayed relatively low heart rate variability during those few moments, which actually is classic for people as people get older, like me. And that is an indicator of aging, actually. And getting more heart rate variability is a very important. Obviously, you need high heart rate at least once a day.
Does that mean moving back and forth left to right or up and down?
No, in this case, not back and forth. Whereas Margarita and GP had quite a bit of variability. In fact, we were plotting variability we would have seen. So in a sense, for this moment, it seems that Margarita had the younger heart. But it would, I mean, for example, do you go out and get exercise every day, or?
I have a bicycle in my office.
Yeah. But I mean, this would suggest that you don't get high heart rate often enough. That's just humbly saying to a friend, which I had the same issue. But where Margarita had more variability, you both had excellent stability, which means emotional maturity, and a lot of coherence, which is also quite good. So a lot of coherence, a lot of stability, and good variability for Margarita, and some improvement. But you did not succeed in linking hearts in this trial. So. Thank you. Yes. Anyone else want to try? Thank you.
For people in empathy, it's much easier when you're not in a crowd looking.
Yes.
That's right. There was a hard one. That was stressful. Yeah, sorry. So who else? Now, what I find is ladies who are more emotionally touchy-feely. Any ladies here want to try it? They tend to link hearts. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, fine. We have two ladies that are volunteering. Patrick.
We're not a couple.
So Dan,
Yes.
tell us how this is different than classical HRV.
Classical HRV, the only input is a plethysmogram, which is measuring the blood pulse peak. So I can time the number of milliseconds between pulse beat peaks and average that, and that's called heart rate variability. So I can see the average over a long term of the change in heart rate, but I cannot see the shape of the heartbeat. Here, I can analyze only about 5 heartbeats, do a power spectra, and know the actual complete musical signature, the musical harmonic content. I was the guy that discovered there was a correlation between that and emotion 40 years ago.
That's not the frequent Fourier transform on the bottom, that's reciprocal of?
Actually, this is the raw data input. What is not displayed and should be, we will discuss with Patrick, is the first order FFT Fourier transform power spectrum, not displayed. What is displayed here is the second order power spectrum called Cepstrum, and my invention of how to do that is why I was credited in the literature with inventing the word heart coherence. The second order power spectrum to measure internal phase coherence. Because before my invention, when you wanted to measure, for example, brain coherence, there was no possibility of measuring internal phase coherence. They could measure cross-hemispheric coherence, compare one with the other and see if they were phase coherent. But to measure the amount of coherence internally in one signal, it was my discovery of using the Cepstrum. The amplitude of the primary peak of the Cepstrum. We don't have the capability to display the first order power spectrum.
So there's no other device on the market that takes the second Fourier.
That's right, and that's also true.
Unique.
That's also true of our brainwave technology. We can measure brain coherence better than anyone in the world for that reason as well. Yeah. So, thank you. Look at that, Patrick. In answer to your question.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is the raw data, simple first order power spectra and second order power. Notice here, in using blue. Look at they're beautiful. Ladies. The ladies do it all the time. And look, right here, golden ratio, bingo, bingo. This is noise here, the red. But
Yes, yes.
yeah, but actually,
Alright.
look at the two ladies. It's very. I told you, the ladies always do it. The guys, they're just more empathic. But that's beautiful. So it's so cool because when you see that high peak in
Okay, okay.
yeah, when you see the high peak in the second order power spectrum, look up here. You see what you're seeing? Does that look familiar? A bit of a caduceus. So here's the raw EKG. Here's the first order power spectrum, frequency signature, Fourier transform 0 to 20 or 0, but yeah, almost 20 hertz, isn't it?
Yes.
And look at that. See that cascade that's harmonically inclusive? And that's literally a almost quasi-conjugated cascade.
The bigger the size of the peak, the best slope you will have.
Which is to say, the more internal phase coherence. It's beautiful. So the ladies are doing it beautifully. They do it naturally. They're sitting together, and you can watch who follows whom and who goes to whom after the fight. I mean, it's very. Any questions about that? I mean, that's gorgeous.
Good heart rate variability.
Let's look at that. Okay, one moment. She's asking if she has heart rate variability. Well, one way to see that is if the peak is really stuck in one place. You see, it's actually true that if this is effectively your heart rate, so we went to full screen now, we're not displaying the first order power. No, it's okay. That's fine. It's very good. We just to see that we have the capability was great. So when this peak in blue is in one place, this is low heart rate variability right now. That's who's it? That's you. Yeah. But see how that moved now? Now the red, unfortunately, we're getting a bit of noise on the red side again. But let's look. Now what you look for is whether those peaks move. And actually they are moving some. This is not bad. Now we can actually quantify the amount of variability more quickly when we go back to the HRV, which is a cheaper system for pulse analysis. So but you're seeing some movement here. Actually, these are healthy hearts, in my opinion. I think they're really great. This is good stuff.
So what happens if you turn on the Therify?
That is a good question. Well, actually, we have done some work response in brain coherence. I know Therify is metabolic acceleration, Kundalini acceleration for sure. So it would be some heart rate increase for one thing, basically. Whether we have greater heart rate variability.
No, coherence.
Oh yeah, coherence response is probably there. There's some practical issues there in that the high voltage environment is a little tricky to do feedback. But even before and after, and we have not done enough of that. Remember, we're announcing this is new today. Actually, we haven't had this system for a while. We had to clarify very much. Any other questions? Anybody else want to try it?
Record the information that you have, the data?
Not at this version, but we think about it, yes.
Soon. Coming soon.
Coming soon.
We have full data recording capability in the brainwave device and the HRV device, but this is relatively new. So yeah. But you know, it's very easy. You just plug this into your machine and record the quick time on and you can play it back. It's no problem.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
If you have an Apple computer,
You can
it's
record
possible. You connect with the USB plug, and then you open QuickTime, and in QuickTime you select recording video. And then you will have your video appearing on the screen. You go to the red button for recording, and on the right there is a small arrow. You touch this small arrow and your iPad will appear. You click on it, and then the display, which will be in QuickTime, will be your iPad or your
And you
iPhone.
can record this. It's easy.
And then you can make a very easy recording.
Because we promised ourselves we're doing the most visually fun things first, so you guys didn't go to sleep. I mean, so that so that was fun, right? Was that fun? Yes, Patrick, that was fun.